I'm going to make a slightly more delicate one than the one that's shown in the photo. So for the one that's shown in the photo, I used 22 gauge wire. I'm going to try today to see what happens if I use 24 gauge wire and use 24 gauge bronze. You're going to need a little bit of chain. You don't need to use chain. You could absolutely use this as the center component of like a stretchy bracelet. Or you could make it as a pendant, hang it off of a beaded piece. So chain is what I'm going to use to make it into a bracelet, but once again, you can alter this, however you want to use it. I'm going to need 3 beads, and I'm committed to using up this sodalite strand. Okay, I fixed that before I got on. Oh my gosh. Ah! Well, apparently my voice to text was on because I just yeah, I got a whole narration of what I was, and it's still going. Okay, go away. that was funny. But anyway, so I am, oh right, I was gonna fix the exposure on my, well, yeah, do you go any brighter? No, you do not go any brighter. Let me just fix this for a second. So I am committed to using up this strand of sodalite. Don't pay any attention to that. That's just a dish that was hanging around my workspace. But so I'm going to use these 3 sodalites for my project today. And okay, well, we're going to see how that goes. That might be too bright, but because these are 6mm beads and what's in the example project are 8mm beads, that's another thing that kind of informed my choice to use a lighter wire for this project. And then I am going to need a clasp, so I've got a lobster claw and a split ring here, and then I've got a jump ring to attach my lobster claw to my bracelet. So the creation of this is extremely simple. It does involve a basic wire wrap loop, but that's the most complicated technique in the whole project. So I'm going to cut myself a decently long piece of wire. I want to go for 2.5 or even 3 feet. This is going to vary depending on how much you want to wrap, but I know since I'm using a thinner wire, I'm going to need to do more wraps around in order to get kind of the thickness that I want. So I'm starting with 3 feet of wire and my chain. So we're going to start with a basic wire wrap loop, and I haven't had a basic wire wrapping focused tutorial on for a while, so we're going to go through this kind of slowly because this is really a useful technique to know if you don't already know it. You're going to start with these pliers, which are your round nose pliers, and you're going to grab your wire about 1.5 to 2 inches from the end of the wire. You want to make sure you leave yourself a decent amount here because this is basically going to be your handle for when you're wrapping, and so you want to make sure you've got enough to hang on to. Then you're going to take your wire, you're going to push it away from you over your pliers. See, it's so bright. Okay, apparently we have super bright or not bright at all. Those are our options for today. So at the moment we're going with super bright. So push your wire away from you over your pliers to make a 90-degree angle. Then what you're going to do is you're going to hang on to your wire so that it doesn't fall down, because typically you would be doing this and you would be doing this in front of you. You wouldn't be holding it awkwardly to the side like I am to get it on camera. So you're going to hold that wire so that it doesn't fall down. You're just going to loosen your pliers, pivot them in that corner that you made just 1/8 of a turn, and grab right down on the corner. Now when you're doing this, you need to make sure that you're grabbing firmly enough that your wire's not wobbling around, but don't press too hard because you can put a dent in your wire and that's going to cause it to break. So you've got to find that happy medium where it's not wobbling around, it's stable, but you're not making a giant dent in it either. Now I'm going to take this wire that is on the other side of my pliers and I'm going to pull it back up over the top of my pliers towards me and down. And so see how that's starting to make a loop on my pliers? Now once again, I'm going to move my pliers independently of the wire. I'm just going to loosen them, rotate them out of the way, grab again, and I'm going to finish that motion of creating that loop. So this is what we call the lady with the scarf, and this is a useful place to have a term for, because a lot of times, this time being not an exception to that rule, a lot of times you've got to connect something at this point. So at this point I'm going to take my chain and I'm going to connect it to my loop. So I'm going to take the end of my chain, the very last link, and I'm just going to slide my wire into that link, and I'm going to feed my chain up my wire, and you're going to have to just pop it past that joint into your loop. Now there's only one way in to this loop. Sometimes people get frustrated because they're trying to go in this way, and that way there is no door. It's got to go from this side so that it can go in between those two wires and be a part of your loop. Then you're going to take your chain nose pliers and you're going to hold across your loop. And so for a right-handed person like myself, I find it easiest to put my loose bits, my chain, on my right-hand side and put my pliers in between my chain and this spot right here, which is where I'm going to wrap. I'm holding very close to the tip of my pliers because it's important that I can see the place where those two wires cross. Then I'm going to make my first wrap, and I want to go for a wrap that is as close to horizontal as I can get it. So I want to make sure that that's not a long kind of spiraling wrap. I want it to be really, really tight. And then I'm going to do another one beneath it. And you don't need to do too many wraps on this project because we're going to be doing the herringbone. So if you make this part of it too long, it gets a little weird. Let's use the small pliers. All right, then I'm going to trim that end of the wire off, like so, and press that down so that I do not have a pokey stabby bit. Then I'm going to go ahead and put on my 3 beads. You can use however many beads you want. Sometimes people will do this as a symbolic thing, like, you know, 2 parents and a child, or, you know, things like that, or siblings. You could do this with birthstones. So you can use really any number of beads for this. I think it would get awkward if you used any more than 6. I think it would be a little stiff and weird. But anything other, you know, anything 6 or less, I think would be good. You could also do this with even smaller beads if you wanted to make more length. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to estimate, all right, how much space do I want to leave for my herringbone wrapping, okay? And I'm going to go with about 1/2 inch on either side of my beads. So that means I'm going to make my second wire wrap not up against the beads as we typically would, but I'm going to make it about 1 inch away. So I'm just going to kind of mark that with my finger and grab my round nose pliers back. And we're going to do a second basic wire wrap loop. So we're going to go away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate, underneath. So there's my lady with the scarf and my space. Now I'm going to take my chain and I'm actually going to go ahead and cut my chain now that I know my length. So I'm going to want to make a 7-inch bracelet. So when I'm cutting my chain, I need to take this center spot section, whatever, this thing, into account. I want to make that a little bit shorter. I don't like that. So here's okay, so I just changed my mind. It happens. I decided that I think this is too much space. So if you're trying to shorten this length, rather than unbending and rebending the wire, the easiest way to do it is to just kind of roll your wire down and then use your pliers to bring it back to center and then unwind your extra. So you're not bending and unbending your wire too terribly much. I think I just want to shorten that a little bit more. Okay, there we go. I think that's going to be more attractive. Okay, so I like this proportion better, so I just adjusted my loop down the way I just showed you again, and now I have my lady with a scarf with, I think, a little bit more reasonable amount of room. Now I'm going to take my chain and I'm going to cut it. So we're going to measure this center piece, which is 1.5 inches. So I want to make a 7-inch bracelet, subtract my 1.5 inches, that takes me down to 5.5 inches of chain I need. Figure my class is going to be another 1/2 inch, so that means I need 5 inches of chain, so that's 2.5 inches on either side. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure out 2.5 inches and cut it. And I'm going to measure another 2.5 inch piece of chain and cut that. And you could totally pre-cut this. I just like to do it at this point because then I've made this piece here and I can measure it and I know exactly what size it is. Now I'm going to find the end of my wire. I'm going to find the very last loop of my chain. Feed that in there. Bring it all the way up. And once again, make sure that you slide that into the loop, and then take your chain nose pliers, hold across that loop, and once again, I've got my loose stuff is on the right, where I'm going to wrap is on the left, and my pliers is in between. And I'm just going to take that, I'm going to make the same number of reps that I did on the other side, which it looks like was about 2.5. And then trim and press it down. Now we're going to start doing our little herringbone wrap. So I'm going to take the remains of my piece of wire, and I want to start with my beads approximately centered on my little pin that I've made here, and they will slide as will your wrap. So if you don't get them exactly centered at the beginning, it's okay. I'm going to take my long wire and I'm going to put it crossways to the wire holding my beads, and I'm going to pinch that firmly, and I'm going to anchor that onto that wire. And you are going to have to be a little careful with this because you're using the same gauge wire as your base, and so you've got to make sure that you're anchoring on without completely destroying this wire. And a lot of times when you do this, you'll get this piece that doesn't look so pretty here. That's okay, because what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to cut that piece off. And then you can see when I cut it off, it's kind of going downwards a bit, which I don't want, so I'm going to use my pliers. I can cut that off a little bit closer. There we go. And then I'm just going to squeeze that end down, and I'm going to slide it and my beads back to the center. Ooh. Okay, this is bad. Alright, I did a bad thing here, so I'm going to have to fix it. I nicked with my wire cutters, I nicked that wire. See that little shiny spot there? That's someplace where I've partially cut through my wire, and it's really very likely that it's going to break at that point. So I'm just going to real quick redo that pin. No, put the beads in the dish so they don't roll away. So I'm just redoing the pin exactly the same way I did, except I'm going to do it faster. Oh. Obviously I need some caffeine this morning. Or early afternoon. I'll show you why in a second. Okay, let's try this again, shall we? So let's see. So tonight we have a torch class, and we're going to do a basic bezel setting class this evening. And then for the rest of the week, it's Zooms. We're doing a Zoom Crafty Cocktail Hour on Friday night, and then we're also doing a Zoom for New Year's Eve on Saturday night. So this evening will be our last tutorial of 2022. Wow. Last night was our last sale of 2022. It's crazy. Okay. So what I can do here is that little wrap that I already made to anchor my wire onto my pin. I can just slide my pin right through that wrap, so I don't have to worry about accidentally doing what I did before, which was nicking my wire when I cut. All right, okay, this puts us back where we were. So now we can continue onward. All right, so back to where we were before I realized that I had screwed up. We're at this place where I've got my beads on my pin with my wire. So I'm just going to kind of hold my beads in the middle of my pin, and I'm going to bring my wire around them, like so, around the outside, and I want to make this as tight as I can around the outside of my wire, and then I'm going to wrap it one time around my pin. Like so. And then I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to wrap it around my beads, and then I'm going to wrap it around my pin, placing the wrap just above the wrap that's already there. And this is why you don't want to do too many wraps to anchor your wire on, because then you're going to wind up with a weird, awkward space here. Once around, and once you've done the first full round, then it's a lot easier because everything's a lot more stable. So just make sure you've got equal space above and below, which we do, and now we're just going to continue on with this pattern. So we're going to go around the outside and then around our pin, and around the outside and around our pin. And what I like to do is kind of keep my beads up a little bit to the top of this. So I'm going to just push them up just a tad so that they're really up inside that wrap and not kind of floating underneath it. It's really easy to get that wrap too high up, and then you're not really framing your beads, you're obscuring them. Well, hi Lori! How's the weather in your neck of the woods? We are topping out today in the 70s because that is the whiplash of the weather in Texas. Okay, so now I'm just going to continue this pattern. Go around the outside, wrap, around the outside, wrap. I'm just going to do this until I filled up all of this space that I left open. And sometimes it's going to turn into, you know, where does this wrap go, above or below the ones before it, and it's going to look better if you go below. Alright, so once you've filled up all that space, and you can decide, you know, if you want to keep stacking up, you can. I can probably get, because I'm literally out of space, I'm on top of the wire wrap right there, so I can probably get one more and call it done. So I'm going to anchor off around this wire wrap that I already made, minus, ooh, 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that's awesome. Balmy indeed. Did you go shopping in your shirt sleeves? All right, so then now that I have wrapped that around, I'm going to trim it. And we're going to press that down. And just make sure that your pokey stabby gets tucked in and isn't rough. Yes, I was getting dressed this morning and I had on a light sweater and I was like, do I need a jacket? And I pulled up my weather app. I was like, nope, definitely don't need a jacket. Okay, so that's the main thing of this. So that's your little pea pod charm. So once again, you could make this, you could use this as the centerpiece of a stretchy bracelet. It would be very cute. Another fun thing that you could do with this is you could actually make multiples of these and link them together and have a whole bracelet of the little pea pods, which would be quite fun. But for now, we're just going to finish this out real simply with a lobster claw and a split ring. And so if you're using jump rings, which I am to attach my lobster claw, the easiest way to get them open is to use 2 pairs of chain nose pliers. Grab with 1 pair on either side of your opening. So my opening is right there. I always like to grab with one the long way and one perpendicular, because that way you get the firmest hold. And we're just going to twist that jump ring open. And here's another trick for working with jump rings is don't try and use your fingers. If you feel like you're always fumbling with jump rings, use your pliers to hold them. I promise you, it makes a world of difference. So I'm going to put that bracelet on there, and then I'm going to drop my lobster claw on there, and then I'm going to use my pliers again to bring that back to being closed, and I want to make sure that I can't see any light through that seam. Apparently I just unplugged a device from the audio jack. That's interesting, since I actually didn't. But thank you, computer, for notifying me of that. I did last night. Maybe that it's just really overdue. I don't even know. I don't even think there's anything plugged into the audio jack. Whatever. Okay, so there's my clasp, there's my little lobster claw, and then this is a tool which you may or may not be familiar with, but if you use split rings a lot, this is a lifesaver. This is a split ring tool. It's all it does. It doesn't do anything else. So if you don't use a lot of split rings, I would not recommend spending money on this, but if you do use a lot of split rings, it is, like I said, it's a lifesaver. So what you do is you just take this little beaky part of the pliers right here, and you're going to put it in between the two halves of your split rings. So split rings are the ones that look like little key rings, so they're double round. And then you're just going to press down, and it's going to separate your split ring for you. So then I can just take my chain, I can catch it on the end of that split ring, and sometimes you need to kind of scooch it over to give yourself enough space, but I can catch that chain on my split ring. Sorry, apparently I can't do it on camera though. I'm not that cool today. But yeah, okay, I'm going to catch my chain on the end of my split ring, and then I'm going to just use my pliers to feed my split ring around. Now there's no reason I couldn't use a jump ring to attach this split ring, just like I used a jump ring to attach the clasp, and if I had chosen to use a soldered ring, that's exactly what I would have done. But since a split ring literally comes with its own mechanism for attachment, why not use it? And there we go. That's it. That's our lunchtime tutorial stream. Incredibly easy, incredibly simple, fun, lots of uses. So that is our Peapod bracelet. So thank y'all so much for hanging out with us on our lunchtime tutorial stream here at Beading from Live Lab. Coming at you live from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. We have Torch Thursday tonight, like I said, our last tutorial of 2022. We're going to be doing basic bezel setting, and I think I need to restart my computer because it is glitching like mad. So I'm going to work on some tech stuff and do some work stuff, and I will... Hi, Pam! Okay, and I'll see y'all back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream. Oh, I never held it up. It turned out really cute. I like the 24 gauge wire. It's a little harder to work with, but you get a more delicate product, which I enjoy. So we'll see y'all back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream tonight around 6 p.m. for that basic bezel setting tutorial. Everyone have a great afternoon, and we'll see you soon. Bye.